Fire is one of those things that I think we can all pretty much agree on is a good thing. Like a little fire is a good thing. To strike a match, okay, that's a good thing. To flick a lighter on, that's a good thing. To light the burner on the stove or a candle in a room or even a fire in the fireplace. These are all good things. But the bigger the fire gets, the more the fear grows. What I mean by that is, like, I know with my wife, with Summer, when we have a fire out in our fire pit outside, when it starts off small, everything's pretty good, everything's going good. We're maybe roasting some marshmallows, making some s'mores, but the kids kind of keep adding on to the fire. And as the fire grows, so does Summer's fear. She becomes a little anxious about what's going on because the fire is beginning to burn out of control. I want you to think about that for a moment. When we think about who our God is, our memory verse for this series we're in is found in Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 24. And it says, "For the Lord your God is a consuming fire, a jealous God." I want you to hear that again. For the Lord your God is a what? Consuming fire, a jealous God. You see, the thing about this relationship with the Almighty, all-knowing, everlasting, all-powerful God is He is a consuming fire. He is out of our control. And so with that, in that relationship, there is an element of fear that is involved. Now, that fear can be a reverent fear, an awestruck wonder, a fear that draws us in. It compels us instead of repels us. But there's also some reality here to a fear that could cause us to disengage from God. You see, He is a jealous God. Now, His jealousy is pure and holy and righteous and good because God is jealous for you. He doesn't want to share you with any other gods. And so as we think about who our God is and that He is consuming us, He wants every part of us. Where is it in our lives that we disengage? Where we say, that's too much, enough is enough, I want to maintain control here, and that fear then becomes our God, and it repels us instead of compels us to God. Now, one of the most common places this happens is in regard to money. Money is the number one false god in our cultural context. Yours might be a little bit different, but I think for almost all of us, we understand how this can happen. Money can begin to control us and dominate us and dictate our choices and decisions, what we'll do, what we won't do, where we'll live, where we'll go, what we'll say, what we'll give. Instead of listening to God, our God is a consuming fire, a jealous God. And so as we come to the final message in this series, this message is really about, are we going to be cowardly or brave? Now, the thing about being brave, and I hope that you just kind of went, well, I want to be brave. I don't want to act cowardly. I mean, none of us do. I want to be brave. The thing about being brave is not that we're not afraid anymore. It means that in the midst of fear, we step into the fear. We go into it instead of running away from it. So there's all kinds of fears. Like one of the most common fears out there is a fear of public speaking. Well, guess what? I don't really have that fear. So for me to step on a stage in front of thousands of people, some people have said to me, "You're so brave for doing that." I disagree. That's actually not a scary thing for me. I don't know why. I'm different in that regard. That one's not something that scares me. What does scare me is making a phone call. Things that some of you are like, what? I'm talking like ordering a pizza on the phone. That terrifies me. For me to do that, to procure a pizza for my family for dinner, to go and make that phone call, that requires some bravery because I'm afraid of it. And so as we think about that, do we want to be cowardly or brave? What's God calling us to do and how is He moving within us? And so part of it is really understanding our identity, that our identity is we're no longer our own, we're servants. And if we're servants, then servants work to accomplish their master's business. Now this is a big deal. Servants work to accomplish their master's business. So as we think about this relationship with God, we understand, okay, this is His kingdom. And I am a part of His kingdom. So He is the king and I am not. And since He is the king, I am the king's servant. Now, as the king's servant, it's important that I understand and know what His business is. Now, in the case of Jesus, His business is to save the world. That's what He's up to. Now, I'm His servant. So in order to follow Him, then I lay down my life. I take up my cross to follow Him. That means that I'm laying down my life daily. I'm not gonna build my own kingdom, I'm gonna sacrifice. And it is a joy to sacrifice, so I'm gonna be about his business, not my own business. Now, one of the parables that Jesus tells is in Matthew chapter 25. And it's this incredible story, and he uses money. And I think it's so good because he uses money and he is helping us to get our brains around this, to trust him and to really work to accomplish his business and to follow him. So we'll pick it up in Matthew chapter 25, verse 14. Jesus says, again, it'll be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted his wealth to them. To one he gave 5 bags of gold, to another 2 bags, and to another 1 bag, each according to his ability. Then he went on his journey. The man who had received 5 bags of gold went at once and put his money to work and gained 5 more bags. So also the man who had 2 bags of gold gained 2 more. But the man who had received 1 bag went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. So we have a master and 3 servants, and the master's business is to make money. All right, now that's kind of the thing about business. I always find it interesting when businesses, companies, corporations, even mom and pop stores, they have mission statements. And the mission statements go on and on about this and that and the other thing. And nowhere in it does it say our mission is to make money. That's kind of the business of business, is to make money. Now, there can be all kinds of other things that come along and maybe help with that or can be in addition to that. But a business is in the business of making money. And Jesus is in the business of saving the world. And so we understand our master's business, but in this story, Jesus goes ahead and uses money because he knows we understand it. And so you have this master who calls his servants into them, and the master is going to go away, but he's going to entrust his business to his servants. And he does it each according to their own abilities. To one he gives 5 bags of gold, to another 2, and to another 1. But it's the master's gold. He entrusts it to them. And so when we think about being servants and really taking on this identity of being servant, because a servant is an identity. It's not just something you do. We act out of our core identity, yes. But what we've done is we've taken an identity and we've turned it into an activity. Instead of being servants, we do service. Now, that's not the same thing. We are servants. And so to get our brains around that, to really say, okay, wait a minute, everything belongs to my master. I'm not my own. I entrust him with everything. Being a servant is not an occasional activity, but it's an all-the-time identity. And so it's this servant identity. Now, if that's the case, then we understand, well, it's not my time. So whatever time has been entrusted to us, which, by the way, we have no idea how much that is. I mean, we have right now, this moment today, but there's no guarantee that we'll have time tomorrow. And so one of the things that we do is we think in terms of, yeah, I'll do that later. I'll get around to that. There could be a moment in the future where, yeah, I'll jump on that, maybe after I'm married, or maybe after I get a new job, or maybe after the kids are out of school, or maybe when I'm retired. No, right now. To trust God and say, well, it's not my time. Whatever time that has been entrusted to me, it's to be given to him. A servant also understands what's not my ability. Whatever abilities we have, the way that we're wired, the way God has created us in his image, and the abilities that he's put inside of us, even the interests that we have. In addition to that, the spiritual gifts. If you're a follower of Jesus and his Holy Spirit dwells inside of you, well, now you have spiritual gifts that he's given you. Which, by the way, one of those gifts that is available to us is the spiritual gift of giving. I just always assumed that since I didn't have that, it was never going to be given to me. I didn't know you could ask God for spiritual gifts. And so years ago, I started praying, God, please give me the spiritual gift of giving. And I think he's done it. I think he's doing it. And you can ask God for spiritual gifts, but those gifts are to be used for his glory. Those gifts are to be used for his kingdom, along with our abilities and talents and things we're able to do. And then the same is also true with it's not my money. It's not mine. It's all his. It all belongs to him. So if we think about this servant identity here, then we say, well, it's really not my life. It's the master's life. I belong to him, all my time, all my ability, and all my money. And not just a portion, but really all of it is his. So let's talk about money there. When we talk about the tithe, And the tithe is a gift. It's a gift from God to us, 10%. Let's not play games. Let's not call 2% a tithe or an occasional gift a tithe. A tithe is 10%. So that's what it means. The tithe is a gift that God gives to us so that we can start there and say the first 10% of everything that I earn, everything that I make, every bit of income that comes in, the first 10% I'm going to give back to you. Well, that's the starting point. That's the reminder right there that it's all His, not just the 10%. I've heard it said very wrongly from certain people in certain times. Hey, you know what? The tithe's really great because you just got to give God 10%, then you can do whatever you want with the other 90%. Well, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Completely asininely wrong, not true in the least. You start with 10% and it's the reminder that the whole 100% is His. But to take it right off the top and to trust it with God and to have a way to give it, and one of those ways is through the local church. I believe that's what God has designed, and what He desires is to say, here you go, God. I'm going to trust you with that. Then the rest is more likely to follow. Then when we consider what we'll buy, and we'll consider where we'll go, and we'll consider how we spend or invest or save or what we're doing, it's all under the authority and the lordship of a consuming God who is taking over our whole lives, who is a jealous God for us, who doesn't want to share us with anything. And so all 100% is His. The tithe is a gift from Him that reminds us that it's all His when we start there. The same is true with our abilities and our time. And to begin every day meeting with God and listening to Him and praying and talking to Him, to have what we might call a daily quiet time. Well, if you started a day off and went, well, okay, the first 30 minutes of my day belongs to you, God. Then the other 23 and a half hours I can do whatever I want with. That's absurd. But to begin the day with Him, to start with Him, what a gift to hear from Him and to meet with Him, and then to step out and to go through that day with Him and to trust Him with our abilities. As we do this, then we are engaging, being drawn in and compelled by our God who is a consuming fire, a jealous God. And we understand that we're His servants, and our work is to accomplish our Master's business. He invites us into that, into His business, into a kingdom that will never perish or spoil or fade away, an eternal kingdom, one that is far superior to anything we could ever build on our own. And so as we think about this idea of being servants and the identity that we have, servants that are faithful with a little are then entrusted with a lot. Yes, this just makes sense. We know it in terms of working in any kind of environment with an employee-employer relationship, for instance. If you have a good employer who then has an employee who does well with a little bit of responsibility, it is likely that the good employer will give the good employee more responsibility. Now, when we think about our master, God, He is perfect. He's beyond good. And if we're faithful to Him, if we are faithful with what we're entrusted, faithful with whatever He has put in us in regards to ability and time and the finances that He entrusts to us, if we're faithful with a little, and it stands to reason that this good God will then entrust us with a lot. Because He knows that we'll be faithful with it. Not faithful to build our own kingdoms, not faithful to deviate from His desires, not faithful to squander or waste what's been entrusted to us, but faithful to invest it as He has called us to. We continue in that story, verse 19. It says, after a long time, the master of those servants returned and settled accounts with them. The man who had received 5 bags of gold brought the other 5. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 5 bags of gold. See, I've gained 5 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share in your master's happiness. The man who had been entrusted with 2 bags of gold came in. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 2 bags of gold. See, I've gained you 2 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share in your master's happiness. Now, just in the context of that story that Jesus is telling, I just want you to imagine the one who had been entrusted with 5 and the one who had been entrusted with 2 now is 10 and 4. There was a doubling that happened here. Now, the reason is because these two servants were all about their master's business. Before the master left, he entrusted his wealth to them, his business to them, and they got after it. Now, they were excited about the master returning. I think that's why in the story, they're the first two in. They're looking, the master's coming, the master's coming. Let's go and share what we've experienced with the master. These servants were brave. They were brave servants. And when we think about them as brave servants, we understand that it wasn't that there was risk involved, is that even in the midst of that risk, they were willing to step into it. They understood that their master was a hard man, harvesting where he's not scattered seed, that this is a responsibility that had been trusted to them. And so let's look at what made them brave. What they did is they didn't waste time. The master didn't say how long he would be gone, but it was probably going to be longer than an hour, probably longer than a day, most likely longer than a week or a month. He was going to be gone for a little while. These servants might have been able to say, you know what, let's kick back for an hour or two, or let's wait a day or a week. Let's take a little time off, a little time for ourselves. No, these two servants went to work immediately. They didn't waste time. They also got to work. And so if we're to be brave servants, then we get to work. We're not going to waste time. We're not going to sit there and say, okay, yeah, this is something I'll get to later, but rather I'm going to get to work now, building God's kingdom. Okay, with that right there, I would just propose this to you. If you already know what God wants you to do in regards to financial giving and trusting Him, then don't waste any time. Do it right now. Like, I'm not even sure you need to listen to the rest of this message. Like, go to MCC online, go to the online giving page, set it up, get to work. Just do it. Trust Him with that. Why wait any more time? Why wait any longer? Trust Him. Be brave in this. And then a brave servant shares in their master's happiness. You'll find joy in it. That's why it's a gift. God gives us the gift of giving. It is this indescribable gift. The reason it's indescribable is because it's so hard to put into words to people who've never experienced it. It's kind of like, I'll put it this way. The best part of a child's birthday party. The best part of a child's birthday party. If I just kind of threw that out there, did an online poll, hey everybody, what's the best part of a child's birthday party? And most people are gonna come back with cake and ice cream. Cake and ice cream, that's the best part, because that's the part where we get to consume this delicious birthday traditional treat, which, by the way, it is cake and ice cream. Don't just give me cake, or don't just give me ice cream. Maybe an ice cream cake on occasion, that's special, but I want the cake and the ice cream. That's pretty special, but that's not the best part. The best part of a child's birthday party is when the child opens your gift. Now, this is certainly true for kids. When they gather around the table or wherever the presents are going to be opened, and the birthday boy or girl is sitting there about to open gifts, you got that one kid, right? Open mine first! Because they're just so excited. They brought a gift, and they want to give it, and they want to see the pleasure on that child's face as that gift is opened. And then each time a new gift is brought up, that one's mine. I got that one. And you want to share in that as you're giving this gift. You see, God knows that we are created in His image, and our God is a generous God. And you and me and all people, we have generosity inside of us that's just clamoring for an expression. Let me out, it's saying. Let me out. And when we do this, we share in our Master's happiness when we trust Him, when we give to Him this indescribable gift of giving. And it doesn't mean that we're not afraid. There's fear. It just means that we've chosen to trust the Master, our God, who is a consuming fire, jealous God. I say this from time to time just because I think it's a bit silly. They say that there's an acronym for fear that says fear is false evidence appearing real. And yeah, that can be true. Sometimes it is false evidence, but I say there's a lot of very real things to be afraid of. In regards to money, I'm sure. Like, God may have laid it on your heart, hey, 10%, let's go, set it up, get to work. What are you waiting for? Be brave, step into that. But there's real fear there because you're looking at the numbers and going, that doesn't add up. And you're right, it doesn't. You're right, it doesn't add up. So what are you gonna do? Are you gonna trust God or money? You're gonna follow the numbers or the Lord? Are you gonna be brave or a coward? Are you gonna press in or draw back? You see, here's the reality of what we're dealing with, is if we refuse to do our master's business, then we have no business in his business. That's a strong statement, and I want to read it again, and I hope you'll chew on it and wrestle with it. But if we refuse to do our master's business, then we really have no business in his business. Now, think about that. That's what's going on in this story. That's the parable that Jesus is telling us. He's saying, okay, the master went away, he comes back. You had the one who had been given 5, now he's got 10. You have the one who had been given 2, now he's got 4. And they brought it all and they gave it back to the master. And the master said, well done, I'm gonna give you more, get back to work. And they were sharing in their master's happiness. But then we have the one servant who had been given the 1 bag of gold. Now, it tells us that he was afraid. And he had taken that 1 bag of gold, and what he did with it was he went out and buried it in the ground. Now, I want you to pay attention to that. He didn't steal it. He didn't lose it. He didn't spend it. He didn't give it away. He didn't even squander it. He buried it. Because he was afraid. How many of us is that like what we're doing in our lives? Where God has given us this life, this time, these abilities, these bodies, these brains, these gifts, and these finances. And instead of using them for our master's business and his glory, in fear, we've gone out and dug a hole in the ground. And we're just trying to keep them safe until God returns. Our master expects there to be an exponential return. The 5 became 10, the 2 became 4, the 1 should become 2. And so we pick it up in verse 24. It says, then the man who had received the 1 bag of gold came. Master, he said, I know that you're a hard man, harvesting where you've not sown and gathering where you've not scattered seed. So I was afraid and went out and hid your gold in the ground. See, here is what belongs to you. His master replied, you wicked, lazy servant. So you knew that I harvest where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed. Well, then you should have put my money on deposit with the bankers so that when I returned, I would have received it back with interest. So take the bag of gold from him and give it to the one who has 10 bags. Whoever has will be given more, and they will have an abundance, and whoever does not have, even what they have will be taken from them. And throw that worthless servant outside into the darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Now, as I read that to you, you may go, whoa. And I honestly, I hope for all of us that there is a realization of the gravity of what we're talking about here. Whoa, hold up. Whoa, what is this? Whoa, what are you talking about? You see, we are saved by grace through faith, and this not from ourselves. It is the gift of God, not by works, so that no one can boast. But you are God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which he's prepared in advance for you to do. So while we do not save ourselves and we rely and depend on grace, God takes us and adopts us as his children into his kingdom. And then we share in his kingdom work. We share in the work that he has entrusted to us as servants. But when fear comes in, and instead of being a brave servant, we become cowardly servants, we do what the servant in this story did. The cowardly servant in this story made excuses. Well, master, really, it's your fault. master, that I didn't do this. I mean, I know that you're a hard man. I know that, that you harvest where you've not scattered seed. It's really you. And so I just dug a hole. They make excuses. They do nothing. That fear is paralyzing. It's real. And when we indulge in the fear and we live in that cowardly space, it's paralyzing. He did nothing. I mean, the master in the story is like, if that's all you're going to do, put it on deposit with the banker so at least there could be some interest earned. You just dug a hole. That's like the worst possible decision you can make with this. I make money. That's my business. And yet you went and dug a hole and put it in the ground. And then they have no place in the business. So as Jesus wraps up that parable and he says, okay, you wicked, lazy servant, you've allowed your fear to control you as opposed to being brave and stepping into that and honoring your master. You've made excuses, you've done nothing. He says, okay, you don't really even want to be in my business. And if you don't really want to be in my business, then you have no business in my business. Take him and throw him out. It doesn't belong. If you're not going to participate in the master's business, then we have no business in his business. And in some ways, it's almost even a kindness of God. That if we're not interested in his business, then we're going to be miserable living in this space where we're giving it lip service, but then succumbing to the fear, having multiple gods calling the shots in our lives, because our God is a jealous God. And if we evaluate and we take a look at our lives and say, well, I'm not interested in God's business. I'm interested in my business. You see, you can't serve God in money. But oftentimes what we do is we try to use God to serve our money. We get the whole identity thing flipped. Instead of being servants of God, we try to make God our servant. Like even in this story, you might hear the story and go, well, wait, I want more. All right, so if the way to get more is if I give more and then I get more, then I can do more of what I want to do. Nope, I've already missed it. When we are entrusted with a little and we're faithful with that, and then God entrusts us with more, it's for his glory, for his kingdom. But we flip that. And we start thinking in terms of, okay, well, it's really about me. So God, how can I use you to give me what I want? As opposed to saying, okay, God, here I am. How will you use me for what you desire? And the whole thing is flipped. And so as we consider this, the question I would have for you is, who is your master? Or what is your master? Where are you being brave? And where are you shrinking back? If you were to examine your life, would you be able to take a look at all aspects of it, from your time and energy and abilities, your emotions, your relationships, how you interact with the world around you, in your home, with your neighbors and your coworkers and classmates, with the way you interact online and the things you say, all the way down to the money that's been entrusted to you? Can you see a clear pattern of Jesus Christ as Lord? And if not, well, then something's off. If there's not a great confidence in that to go, yes, where you feel your master's pleasure, if there's shame, if there's anger, if there's such a frustration and an overwhelming fear, then something's off, because our master is a good master. So good. And he doesn't want us out of his business. That's why he entrusts it to us to begin with. He wants us in. And no matter who you are, and no matter what you've done or what's been done to you, that can happen right now. But our God is a consuming fire, a jealous God. And he's not in the business of sharing us. There's only one master. Who is yours? If you want it to be Jesus, he's in. That's why he laid down his life, for you to make a way, for you to be a part of his eternal kingdom, to be his servant. But know that he's entrusting this to you. Will you do your master's work and share in your master's happiness? Or are you more interested in your own kingdom, doing your own thing, your own way? As you wrestle with that right now, I want to pray a blessing over you. And a part of that blessing is going to be that you waste no time, but that you surrender everything that all of us do to a wonderful master, an amazing king, and we really become his servants, brave servants who trust him and feel his pleasure and share in it. Let's pray. Father, I ask right now, and Father, right now, in a very immediate way, God, we would make decisions and choices to trust you with everything. I thank you that you are a consuming fire and a jealous God, that your love is pure and perfect and good. And God, I pray that we hold nothing back from you. And that, God, we would share in your happiness as we see your kingdom grow and more people come to know your son, Jesus. And we ask for that in his name. Amen.